Welcome to Kentucky Football Nation. Well, let's talk about SEC Media Days. I'm making this video late, so this will be put up Friday night, probably late here. There won't be much of a period before it preview. So I want to start out with what the players said, because he brought 3 players to Media Days. First one was Alex Afari. I thought the players did good. 6 things he really went over was Mike Stoops has him ready to move from defensive back to inside linebacker. So it's an easy transition for him because he did play that a few games last year. So he said he's comfortable at playing linebacker. He talked about David Gusta, the defensive lineman from Washington State, said he's a big, strong dude, which we already knew that. He's 300 pounds. That was a good pickup. He said he started enough games at linebacker to be comfortable. I don't know how many games he started at the end of the year, but they moved him. Brad White wants him closer to the ball because he's a playmaker. So that's why he's an inside linebacker. And he is quick and athletic. They did ask him about his size, but, linebackers aren't 250 anymore. Historically, linebackers are now becoming a hybrid defensive back. 220, 215 can really be athletic and have speed to cover people, because all these spread offenses, you got to be able to cover running backs and tight ends out of the backfield. And he wished Vince Merrill the best, which everybody did on here. And he's impressed with all the defensive linemen who transferred in. So that was good. And then they went to Jordan Lovett, of course, who's a defensive back. And he said the defensive chemistry has to be better. So that's what they're working on. The back line is experienced and ready to play, because that is the strength of our defense and the most experience. He wished Vince Merrill the best, common theme. And they asked him about Kentucky being an underdog, and he said he loved being in the underdog role because it gives them something to play for. Well, that's good, because I think after the media days was over, the coaches voted, and we came out next to last for Mississippi State. So he's going to get his wish. Josh Kattus. Now, Josh Kattus, guys, if you look at him, he does not look like the person that I thought he would look like. I've never seen him with his helmet off and his uniform off. He looks like an insurance salesman. Talks very, his voice and his body didn't match what I thought it would, but he did very good. He said the tight end room is excited about the new tight end coach, Coach Shea. He's been at LSU and Marshall, so they really like him. Of course, he took over for Vince Merrill. Vince Merrill was the highest paid tight end coach. He said the O-line looks great, which is good. As a senior, he must play a leadership role, saying all the right things here, which he must. He says, and a lot of people said this, it's nice to have offensive coordinator Bush Hamdan for a second year. Obviously, guys, last year they were limited. If you listen to what Mark Stoops says, and we'll get into this, they had so many injuries and offensive line, and so many people who weren't happy. It just was an awful season. So now Bush Hamdan's getting the people, as I've said in prior video on my Bush Hamdan video, now he's getting the people he wants to run, the offense he wants to run. He said Zach Calzada is very talented and experienced in the SEC, which he is. We'll talk more about him in a minute. Now, everybody's talking about Seth McGowan. Now, who told you about Seth McGowan? What SEC podcast or football podcast? I did. There's a video on him. Go back and watch my Seth McGowan video. It's easy to see that this dude is athletic and can catch the ball and can run. What do you say? Seth McGowan is a stud who's one of the strongest players on the team in the weight room. They said pound for pound, Seth McGowan, and I think he's 6'1", 205 or something like that. But pound for pound, the strongest player on the team. So they're impressed by Seth McGowan. I was already impressed with him. Look at my video. You'll be impressed with him. Of course, if you don't look at it and you're a Feinbaumer, well, then he sucks. But I digress. Running game. The offensive attack will be balanced. This is another thing. Who told you the offensive attack was going to be balanced? I just did a video on Bush Hamdan. Why is it going to be balanced? Because that's what they did at Boise State. We want to run for 200 yards, throw for 200 yards. That's the goal of a Boise type or that type of offense we're going to play. So the quarterback doesn't, everybody's talking about the quarterback. The quarterback does not have to stand back there and throw for 300 yards for us to win. He just has to manage the game and make good decisions, which Zach Calzada can do. The offensive line is playing with a 4th-and-1 mentality. Now, Stoops and everybody talked about our mentality, 4th-and-1 mentality, 1 yard, get that 1 yard. So work hard. So it was kind of a catchphrase that was going around. If you watched KSR or any of those, you saw that. So the new players are not concerned about last season going 4-8. They could care less. I agree. Why the hell would you care? You won't. So Josh Kattus did very well. Okay. Now, before I talk about Mark Stoops, one thing I found out about Kendrick Law, Cole Kublik, he did a little side interview with KSR. You can watch that on their side and go on the ESPN app. And he was with Randall Cobb, and they were talking about Kendrick Law. Now, Kendrick Law, I want you to understand, he's 5'11", 209 pounds. Cole Kublik said he's the best blocking wide receiver he's seen in the SEC since Hines Ward of Georgia, which was 2000s. This guy is 5'9", 209. He can bench press 500 pounds, and he can run a 4.4. So he's going to block. I cannot imagine. I've never heard of someone who has a little experience working out. Someone that size lifting 500 pounds is very rare. So the guy's strong, so they're going to use him. That's why if you look at the Boise State offense, the slot receiver plays in tight. I was wondering why that he played in tight, because he's going to do the Wan'Dale Robinson thing, as I've said. I know they're going to use him. They're going to do a little handoff to him. They're going to do little end arounds. They're going to throw a 3 or 4 yard pass and try to get him to use his speed to break it. But he's also going to block, which means he's going to run block. So we're going to run the football. Clue, I know, but I'm not on SEC Unfiltered or Good Old Boy Podcast. So look, what the hell do I know? If you just did a little bit of research, like 20 minutes, you could figure that out on your own. So yeah, Kendrick Law, that's who Kublik and Randall Cobb were impressed with. That is impressive for a guy that size. So they predicted he's going to have a good season, and I hope they're right. Okay, let's go to Mark Stoops. He actually gave a little press. He gave a press conference outside the main room. You know, before you go in, you're kind of standing around. So let's talk about that one first before he went in the main room. They asked him why he's keeping a low profile this season. And he said he's not laying low. He's just working hard. So everybody's saying, well, he's not saying anything. He's not saying. What can you say after 4-8? We got to get to work. Get in the weight room. Get out on the field. That's the smart thing to do. What are you going to say? You know, I know KSR is like, well, there's no players to hype up. There's no Will Levis. Look, winning's going to hype up. Okay, that's what's going to hype up. Playing hard. If people see them playing hard. He wished Vince Merrill the best. He holds no grudge and appreciates what he did for the program, but he's moving on quickly. Great idea. Yeah. Look, Vince is gone. He did good. Hey, man, congratulations. Tip your hat to him. Good luck at Louisville. I hope we beat you. Position coaches are taking a more active role in recruiting, which is one reason Merrill left. And recruiting is different, and you cannot miss on players due to NIL, the NIL landscape. In other words, if you miss on a player, it costs you money. So, yeah, everybody, it's got to be a group decision now. Yeah, I think it's a go around the room, or let the wide receiver coach have a say on the wide receiver, defensive line coach have and so on and so forth, which makes sense to me. So I thought that was good. He said NIL now levels the playing field. We'll get into this. He talked about money. I don't know about that because there's going to be a lot of court cases if they try to put in a salary cap. Kentucky's fundraising is being done with the help of Mitch Barnhart, which takes a lot of pressure off of him. Okay, so the last couple of years he'd been worried about money and pony up and all that. He says now he doesn't have to worry about that. I'm sure the Club Blue NIL and other things like that, we got people doing it for him now. He doesn't have to worry so much about it, which is good. He needs to worry about coaching. He talked about the quarterback room. He's excited about Calzada and Boley. They will compete for playing time and the starting job. And he's trying to get them on the same page with the wide receivers and tight end. So he's saying that the starting job is not called yet. So we'll see in the summer. But yeah, Calzada is probably going to start. You know, he's going to have to mess it up. And I love Boley, and I hope he plays next year. And then we got the kid from Cincinnati coming in behind him. Now, I don't understand this one. Wide receiver Harley Gilmore did not want to leave, but he's glad to be back. Well, he left. I mean, nobody made him leave. He got in the car and drove to Nebraska. So I don't know. Maybe he came back because he had second thoughts. And when they released him, maybe they just decided, you know what, I want to go back. So that's probably part of it. But he is a good wide receiver. Watch my short video on Harley Gilmore, wide receiver. This year, the team is healthy. Everyone's 100% for opening day. Okay, now we haven't had that in a couple seasons. So glad about that. The offensive linemen that transferred in are mature and have played a lot of football. We already talked about that many times. We got some very good offensive linemen, CHP, Joshua Braun. So we're good on offensive line. We have an SEC offensive line. He said coming off a 4-8 season is hard, and he has to look at everything that went wrong. Everything has to be evaluated about the program, but you can't dwell on what happened. I agree. Don't dwell on it. It's over. We got 31 new people now, so let's get going. He talked about Seth McGowan. I've already told you about Seth McGowan. I don't know I haven't heard another football or basketball channel say anything about Seth McGowan except for me. So I appreciate my 300 subscribers. A little inside baseball there. Seth McGowan, he's an NFL back and a complete back. He runs with a lot of energy. Glad to have him. Yeah, go watch my video on Seth McGowan. When he hits the hole, he hits the hole. And he's pound for pound the strongest guy on the team is what everyone is saying. So yeah, he runs full speed and I like it. And once again, he can catch the ball. And if you look at the Boise State offense, the running back catches the ball. So wow, it took me like 5 minutes of watching his highlights to figure that out. The offense has to be balanced. We will run the ball. You're going to hear the word balance. Why balance? Because we're going to throw and pass. There you go. That's balance. Then we went into the main room, and then we did the main press conference here. So first thing Mark Stoops said is to move past last season. Obviously, you want to move past that. He talked about the quarterback transition. Calzada. We have a lot of how did you pick Zach Calzada? Okay, he said we had a lot of tape on him, and he had a lot of reps, and he has experience at Incarnate Word in Texas A&M. That's why he chose him, obviously. But because he went to Incarnate Word, I know he's no good. Okay, third thing he said, moving Alex Afari from defensive back to linebacker. He did that because he can play multiple positions on the defense, which he can. He's fast enough and big enough to play linebacker or probably anywhere in the backfield except corner. Somebody asked him about losing home games. And he said it's hard to explain. And then they talked about they gave up too many explosive plays at home, and he was using the Georgia game, how they blew that. Yeah, we blew that with explosive plays. So we need to win at home. Nobody wants to pay that much money to show up for you to lose. Talked about the front seven is developing well. Everyone is healthy. A lot of depth on the defensive line, which I'm glad to hear that. The group is gelling. Last year, they couldn't practice due to injuries. So they couldn't even have contact practices with the defense, which is why they played poorly at times. So then he talked about player evaluations and the portal, adjusting to 26 new players. It was needed that we get 26 players. It was needed that we got 26 players to leave is what it was needed. I get 26 new players. I'll say that. The plan is not to do that every year. So yeah, every year you're not going to see 30 new people. Yeah, I would hope not. How to evaluate transfers. People ask him, well, how do you know who to pick? And he said, you gain as much information as possible about the player by talking to other coaches and spending time with them on their campus visit. So you're feeling them out to see if they're the right person, which makes sense to me. Okay, so that's a good plan. He loves all the transfers from 2025, and he should, because we got some good ones. I know people think the wide receiver room is going to look. We're going to have a solid wide receiver room. Just wait and see what I said, because of the offense that we run. That's why, and we're not going to be trying to run with somebody else's players. He talked about David Gusta. Once again, somebody else talked about him. Afari, very experienced and is disruptive and has a high motor. Yeah. Okay. So I'm about ready to put up a video of Gusta and another defensive lineman. I put the two together so it could make one longer video. So I'm going to show you David Gusta, the guy we got from, I think he's from Washington State. I think that's where he was from. He blows up a lot of plays. Yeah, you're going to see he gets in the backfield quick and blows up running plays and blows up the quarterback. So that's what we need. Smart pickup, good player. Then I won't go a lot into he talked about the house revenue sharing, operating within a cap. He's hoping we will operate within a cap, so we'll be on an even playing field with everyone else. And all the schools want to make it work. Yeah, right. I don't know about that. All SEC coaches are operating on a high level playing field, and the approach must have a budget in mind and be strategic. Going to be some court cases. So we're going to see, guys. The NIL thing is going to be so many court cases. I don't know. Look, there's going to be people that want to spend more money than everybody else. I don't know, but it's nice for everybody to hope that. And I'm sure no coach is going to, or no program is going to say, yeah, we're going to spend more money. You. So yeah. Last here, someone said you're a player's coach. Why do you do that, and what does that mean? And he said connecting with the players and having a relationship is the most important thing, but you must be able to correct them and their attitude. So yes, he is a player's coach. Okay, real quick before I get off here, because we're at 15 minutes. Real quick, the media. Josh Pate didn't even bring us up. Didn't bring up anybody on the last day. Didn't bring up Missouri, Texas A&M. He's too busy shaving his arms. For those of you that don't lift weights, when you have show muscles, you like shave your arms so they look bigger. So hey, Josh, real men have hair on their arms, buddy. So that's all right. We won't mention you anymore because you're not worth it. So put on a real tight shirt and bulk up, will you? I will say this real quick. The SEC podcast, the two guys, Shane, Uncle Shane, whoever the guys are on there, came up with a good idea. They were talking about Arkansas's coach and Mark Stoops. And they said, instead of trying to buy them out, which they have high buyouts, the 30 million, I think Arkansas's coach has 20 million. They were saying, take that 30 million, give it to Mark Stoops and buy some players and try to make him a better coach. I agree with that 100%, instead of trying to buy him out. All right, guys, we will preview Georgia coming up next. If you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching.